George S. Patton built his reputation on one thing: speed. In North Africa, in Sicily, across France, Patton's Third Army moved faster than anyone thought possible. While other generals planned and repositioned, Patton attacked. He bypassed strongpoints, outran his supply lines, and forced German units to collapse simply by refusing to slow down. His enemies learned a hard truth: if Patton was coming, resistance only made things worse. And then he reached Metz, a city that didn't break, a fortress system that didn't care how fast you were, a battlefield that refused to be rushed. By September 1944, Patton's tanks had raced hundreds of miles since the breakout from Normandy. Paris was liberated, German armies were in retreat. Many officers believed the war in the West might be won before winter. But on the banks of the Moselle River, that momentum died. Patton's army stopped moving, not because of German counterattacks, but because of stone, concrete, mud, and time. Metz wasn't supposed to be hard. On paper, it was just another obstacle. In reality, it became one of the most frustrating battles Patton ever fought. For weeks, American forces battered themselves against a city designed to be attacked and designed to survive it. Tanks couldn't maneuver, infantry couldn't advance without heavy losses. Air power and artillery, Patton's usual solution, didn't deliver quick results. The faster Patton tried to go, the harder Metz pushed back. This is the story of the battle that forced Patton to slow down, the fight that exposed the limits of speed and aggression, and the medieval fortress that taught the fastest general in Europe a lesson he never forgot. Metz was not just another city on the map. It was a strategic knot that tied together everything Patton needed to keep moving east. Sitting astride the Moselle River, Metz controlled key road and rail networks leading directly into Germany. Whoever held Metz controlled the approaches to the Saar and the industrial heartland beyond it. For Patton, this created a problem he couldn't ignore. By September 1944, Third Army had advanced so quickly that its supply lines were stretched thin. Fuel, ammunition, and food were already arriving late. Leaving a heavily fortified German stronghold sitting on his flank was dangerous. German artillery from the Metz forts could cut off supply convoys, disrupt crossings over the Moselle, and threaten any continued advance toward the German border. There was also pressure from above. Eisenhower wanted secure lines of communication before committing to deeper operations into Germany. A loose fortress complex behind American lines was unacceptable. Metz had to be neutralized, either captured or rendered harmless. On the German side, Metz carried enormous symbolic and practical value. Annexed by Germany after 1871 and fortified for decades, it was considered part of the Reich, not occupied territory. Hitler had declared fortress cities like Metz Festungen, positions to be held at all costs. German commanders were under explicit orders not to withdraw, not to surrender, and to bleed attackers for as long as possible. This collision of priorities made Metz inevitable. Patton needed it gone to keep moving. The Germans needed to delay him. And unlike the open terrain Patton thrived in, Metz offered defenders everything he hated: fixed positions, narrow approaches, and no easy way around. Speed had carried Patton this far. Metz was about to test whether speed was enough. What made Metz different wasn't the number of German troops defending it, it was the city itself. Metz wasn't defended by a single wall or a central citadel. It was surrounded by a ring of modern fortresses, built by the Germans in the late 19th and early 20th centuries when Metz was part of the German Empire. These weren't medieval ruins, they were purpose-built for industrial warfare: concrete, steel, and earth, designed to absorb punishment and keep fighting. Each fort was positioned to support the others. Fields of fire overlapped. Artillery could cover approaches to neighboring positions. Underground tunnels connected bunkers, magazines, and command posts, allowing defenders to move, resupply, and survive bombardment without ever exposing themselves. Many positions sat on high ground, dominating river crossings and roads Patton needed to use. This was exactly the kind of battlefield Patton disliked. His doctrine relied on movement, surprise, and momentum. He preferred to outflank, bypass, and collapse enemy formations. Metz offered none of those options. There was no open flank to turn, no single breakthrough point that would cause the defenses to unravel. Every approach was covered. Every shortcut led into a killing zone. Even worse, the fortifications were built to defeat artillery, the very tool Patton normally used to crack resistance quickly. Thick, reinforced concrete absorbs shell fire. Guns could be knocked out temporarily, only to reappear hours later. Air power, limited by weather and accuracy, couldn't reliably neutralize targets buried underground. Patton had smashed German armies in open country. Metz forced them into a slow, methodical fight against stone and concrete. And that was a battle the fortress was designed to win. If Metz was a problem Patton couldn't ignore, Fort Driant became the one he couldn't let go. Fort Driant sat southwest of the city and dominated key approaches along the Moselle. On maps, it looked like the logical place to start. If Driant fell, Patton believed the rest of the fortress ring would unravel. It was a familiar pattern. Identify the strongest point, smash it, and let momentum do the rest. But Fort Driant wasn't a single target. It was an underground world. American intelligence underestimated it badly. What appeared to be a handful of surface bunkers concealed a vast complex beneath the ground. Tunnels, reinforced chambers, firing ports hidden in hillsides, and artillery positions that could survive repeated bombardment. German defenders could vanish underground, reposition, and reappear where American troops least expected them. Patton ordered a direct assault. What followed was some of the most brutal fighting Third Army experienced in the entire campaign. Infantry advanced under heavy fire, only to discover entrances they'd cleared led deeper into the fortress rather than through it. Engineers tried sealing bunkers with explosives, only to find secondary exits still active. Flamethrowers and demolition charges had limited effect against defenders protected by concrete and earth. Casualties mounted quickly. Progress was measured in yards. Units rotated in and out, exhausted, frustrated, and increasingly aware that Fort Driant was consuming men without delivering results. After weeks of fighting, Patton made a decision he rarely made. He called off the assault. It was a quiet admission that speed and aggression had met something they couldn't overcome head-on. Fort Driant remained in German hands, and Patton had lost time, men, and momentum trying to take it the way he always had. Metz wouldn't be beaten by force alone. It demanded patience, and Patton had learned that lesson the hard way. As September turned into October, Metz was no longer just a fortress problem. It became an environmental one. Autumn rains soaked the Lorraine region, turning fields into mud and roads into bottlenecks. Vehicles bogged down. Tanks struggled to maneuver off paved surfaces. Supply trucks crawled forward, delayed not by enemy fire but by impassable terrain. Patton's greatest advantage, mobility, was being taken away by the weather itself. Air power, another pillar of Patton's success, became unreliable. Low clouds and rain grounded aircraft or limited strikes to brief windows of opportunity. When planes did get through, targets were hard to identify, and the deeply buried fortifications around Metz absorbed punishment that would have destroyed field defenses elsewhere. There was also the issue of supply. After racing across France, American logistics were stretched to their limit. Fuel shortages had already forced pauses in Patton's advance. Now, the demands of a prolonged siege, artillery ammunition, engineer equipment, replacements, competed with the need to support operations across the entire front. Inside Third Army, morale began to strain. Soldiers who had grown accustomed to rapid advances now faced static positions, repeated assaults, and limited visible progress. Metz felt like a step backward into the kind of grinding warfare they thought they'd left behind in Italy. Meanwhile, the Germans benefited from every delay. Time allowed them to reinforce, resupply where possible, and rotate units through the fortress system. Even when isolated, the forts around Metz did exactly what they were designed to do: hold out, slow the enemy, and force him to pay in time rather than territory. By October, it was clear Metz wouldn't fall quickly. Patton could no longer outrun the problem. He would have to rethink how to defeat it. Patton didn't abandon Metz, he adapted to it. After the failure at Fort Driant, Third Army shifted away from dramatic assaults and towards systematic reduction. Instead of trying to crack individual forts head-on, Patton ordered them isolated. Supply routes were cut, communication between forts was disrupted. Each position was treated as a problem to be contained, not rushed. Artillery was used differently now, not for quick breakthroughs, but for sustained pressure. Guns were carefully registered. Targets were methodically worked over day after day. Engineers played a larger role, sealing entrances, collapsing tunnels, and neutralizing firing positions one at a time. When air support was available, it was coordinated tightly with ground operations, striking specific forts rather than the city as a whole. The Germans inside Metz held on, but the logic of the situation worked against them. Isolated forts couldn't support each other indefinitely. Ammunition ran low. Morale deteriorated. Command and control broke down as communications failed and relief never came. In November 1944, after weeks of pressure, the fortress system finally cracked. One by one, the forts surrendered or were abandoned. Metz itself fell shortly afterward. It wasn't fast, it wasn't elegant, but it worked. Patton had beaten Metz not by outrunning it, but by outlasting it, using patience, coordination, and overwhelming resources instead of raw momentum. The fortress that slowed him also forced him to change. Metz didn't defeat Patton, but it did expose something important about him. It showed that speed alone wasn't enough against prepared defenses, that even the most aggressive commander could be slowed by engineering, terrain, and time. And it forced Patton to fight a battle he didn't like in a way he didn't prefer. But Metz also revealed Patton's real strength. When his instincts failed, he didn't quit. He adjusted, he learned, he accepted a slower, harsher kind of warfare and saw it through to the end. Metz was never Patton's most dramatic victory. It wasn't clean, fast, or glamorous, but it was honest. It showed the difference between a reckless general and a professional one. The fastest commander in Europe didn't win at Metz by being fast. He won by being patient. And that may be the most important lesson the fortress ever taught him.